That sounds awesome. All right, so we're gonna get started. Before we do a little intro, for those who haven't met me before, I'm Lauren. I'm the marketing lead here at Unruly. And Emily, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm the lead of school success here at Unruly.
Awesome. I don't know if you guys can see this thing at the bottom of my screen. Hopefully it's not getting in the way.
No.
All right. So I'm going to do a quick poll. We're going to be doing a lot of polls today because that's how we're going to be playing Jeopardy. So bear with me. I want to know how familiar you guys are with Unruly Splash, just to get a sense for, do I need to explain a little bit about what it is and how it works, or are you guys already familiar with it? So I'm going to run a poll and just let me know. I included a slide about splats anyways, just for those who might be new to it. So I'll give you a couple more seconds. Awesome. Cool. So most people have heard of splats, but never used them before. And a couple people have never heard of splats. Okay, so I came prepared. Important context before we get started. So Splats is a STEM and Learn to Code platform that includes software, block-based coding software, and Unruly Splats, which are programmable floor buttons that light up and make sounds, and they sense when they're stomped on. So students can create their own rules and control the splats to create active games like relay races, dance games, whack-a-mole. During pre-COVID times, of course, this was great. And now since COVID, we've come out with a number of virtual activities as well, which this one that we're about to go over is actually one of them, and doesn't require physical splats at all. It's more of a game that's going to introduce you to intro to block-based coding concepts and a little bit of an intro to our app as well. Anything to add, Emily?
You got it.
Awesome. All right, so one more poll for important context right now. Are you virtual? Are you hybrid? Are you all in person? What's the status? So I'm going to run a poll in just a second. Let us know what you're dealing with. We have another fan of Bridgerton, Emily, so I think
Strong endorsement.
strong endorsements. I also just watched the Tiger Woods documentary on HBO. Can recommend. It's intense, but very good. All right. We're all sports fans here at Unruly, so we like the sports gossip. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So a good mix of everything, virtual, hybrid, and in person. Cool. All right. So Emily's going to go over sort of how this slide deck works. So this is an activity pack that her and the school success team created, and it's really fun. It's interactive. So this is the same activity pack that you would get and could use with your students. So Emily, do you want to sort of walk us through how it works?
Sure. So if you've seen any of our slide decks that we've put out before, we usually have some sort of instructional thing at the beginning, just walking you through how to make a copy of the deck. For this particular activity, the only thing that you really need is the Splats app. So that's all you really need for doing Quiz Show. We do have a tracker that's attached on here if you did want to keep track of the score. Today, we're not going to be keeping track of score at all. So it's totally up to you how you'd like to do it with your classes. And like we're going to be keep on saying probably throughout this whole time today, that you don't need to be experts. So this is really designed to be a review of really basic block coding concepts. And one other thing which we'll also point out is it's pretty similar to other Jeopardy-style slide decks that many of you might have made before. So there is like a home icon on the bottom right page, and that can take you back to the home screen.
We'll see that in just a sec. All right, so how do we play?
So we like to oftentimes start off with some sort of silly thing for whatever team is going first. So whoever has the most answers is the example we've got on here. The key difference between this game and other Jeopardy style games is that it is done typically in teams. And there's a couple other key differences that I'm also going to highlight. The team that is going first is going to pick the category question and whatever value, so 200, 400, etc. And then you go straight to that question after the team picks. And all of the teams are going to read and answer the question before the time runs out. So that's the key difference in the way that we're going to be playing today. And also if you were going to use this with your students, same thing. So that's the main difference really between this and other Jeopardy style games. So every team is going to answer. And the logistics of how you do that is completely up to you. I'm a big fan of the team captain route, but if you're virtual, you can also do breakout rooms, team votes, write it on Post-its, free for all, it's completely up to you. We do have a 60-second timer. I think we're not going to be using that today, but we have a 60-second timer that's built into the top of each question. You can use that. You can change the time. Like a lot of our activities, you can really have it be however you want to play it. And the answer, the other thing that's a little bit different, because every team is going to be answering each question, we immediately reveal the answer to the question right afterwards. So that is also a key difference. So if you wanted to not do that, you need to make sure to delete those slides or skip them in some way. And then the other thing that's also a little bit different is that any teams that get the question correct get that money or that point value for that point. So it is much more collaborative. Every team answers, every team ends up getting points. And yeah, those are the rules.
Cool. You guys have thought of everything. So both Emily and Tuan used to be classroom teachers. So I feel like there's so many things in here that I would never have thought of, like the home button. So it's a really fun user experience. Ooh, I need to admit a couple people. Perfect. All right. So we explained that this is sort of an activity in the form of a slide deck. So I'm going to send it out after the meetup, but just some logistical things, making a copy of the entire presentation, and you can save it onto your Google Drive and go nuts with whatever modifications you want. All right, and do you want to go over some tips before we get started?
Yeah. One big thing is there's a lot of questions on here. So especially if you're, don't feel like you need to play all this at once. So you can split up this Jeopardy game as many times as you need to. Just make sure to keep track of which questions that you have done. There's not an easy way in Google Slides to really show that, so do keep track. You can play this virtually or you can play it in person. Again, like we always keep saying, you don't need to be an expert. The answers are immediately on the next slide too. So if you're kind of confused on a question, you can talk through it and immediately with your students on the next slide. And you can also change the rules to really anything, but one of the big ones that I could see is that you don't have every team answer each question. You could have it work more like traditional Jeopardy. And you can also make little mini breakouts. You don't have to give everybody points, just like everything. You can change everything.
You guys make the rules. Okay, so this was more a reminder for me of Swedish fish. So I'm going to pick a random winner at the end. You'll get a 5-pound bag of Swedish fish or any candy of your choice. But I mean, come on, Swedish fish is pretty awesome. So except I had an Oreo that was Swedish fish flavor and it was not good. So beware of that.
Oh, that's terrible.
Okay, so this is our board. I've blocked off the how-to section and then one question in the vocab just because it's really Splat specific. So if you don't have any familiarity with our app at all, those are questions that are going to be really specific, like, what is the game locker? And if you've never used our app before, you might not know what that means. So we want to keep it open to everybody today. So we're going to block off the how-to section. But how I thought we could play is if you all want to raise your hands, and then I can pick you, and then you can unmute yourself and pick which one you want to play. So you can pick vocab for 200, order up for 800, and as Emily said, we're not keeping official track of points here today, but if you want the bragging rights, then please feel free to keep track of the money that you get today. All right, so.
Oh, and one other thing, everyone will be answering each one through the poll.
Yes.
So you're just raising your hand in order to pick the question.
Yes. Okay, so hopefully you have the ability to raise your hand. It's been a while since I've been in one of these, so okay, awesome. People are raising their hands. This is great. Why don't we go with Lori first? Lori.
I'll take vocab for 200.
Okay. All right, question is starting block.
Which two are starting blocks? You are going to be picking two for this particular poll question. Block A is when splat pressed. Block B is when program starts. Block C is splat 1 pressed. D is light splat with color. E is play sound splat on splat 1.
I think this might have been the one question that I didn't make a proper poll question for, but let me just see. So I'm picking two. Okay.
You're all good. We can also just put
Yeah. So for this one, they're all a little different. So for this one, write your answer in the chat, please.
Everybody's got it.
Is it coming in? All right, this one was a good warm-up since you all see each other's answers. All right, let's see what the answer is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Surprise, surprise. All right, nice. Good one, guys. And so I'm gonna press this home button you can see in the right-hand corner, and that's gonna bring us back to our board. So we've done vocab for 200, and I see a couple more raised hands. So let me just go back here to Angela. What's your pick?
How about it does what for 200?
All right, good pick.
All right.
So
what does this code
what does
do?
this code do? Pick the one true answer.
So for A, it's when splat 1 is pressed, splat 1 score increases by 1. B, when splat 1 is pressed, splat 2 score is reset to 0. C, when splat 2 is pressed, splat 2 score increases by 1. And D, I just had a poll explode. When splat 2 is pressed, cat sounds. So fill in your answer in the poll.
Yes. All right. We got about half of the people have responded so far. Don't worry, this is anonymous. Okay. A few more seconds. Which I guess is in. All right. I'm gonna end the poll and share the results. So resoundingly, A was the top answer with B coming in second. So let's see what it was. It was A. Nice job. 200 points for those of you who guessed A. Nice job. All right, back to the home screen.
Do you mind actually going back to that for 1 second? It was it does what for 200?
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about why it's not B.
Good.
So when you'll notice that we have these little number cube holes for little puzzle pieces where we indicate which splat is which. So this one's kind of tricky. So you'll see that for when splat 2 is pressed, that whole bottom starting block, you're going to set splat 1 to score 0. But when splat 1 is pressed, we're going to be changing splat 1 score by 1. So this is actually one of the most common mistakes because those little number icons are so small. So gotcha with that one.
I make this mistake all the time, especially if any of you all have played any sort of voting machine game, because I do the lazy route, especially with splats, which is copying the first one, and then usually that copies the numbers as well. And so sometimes I forget to change them. So that's a super common, yeah, like Emily said, one of the most common things, but super easy to spot the bug, thankfully, when you run the code. Yeah. All right, good one. Okay, so I see Sarah raised her hand.
I'll take blocks for 200.
Okay.
break a link?
I think it broke a link. So I'm gonna stop sharing just so that I don't don't show you the answers. And I'm gonna blocks for 200. I'm gonna manually go there because I think I broke a link. Oh, you know what? That one's actually missing from our slide presentation. I'm sorry. So let's pick another one. I didn't.
about
For some reason,
Blocks for
okay.
400.
I remember I deleted it because we did a splats chat on Twitter, and that was one of the things that was on there. And so I didn't want anybody from the splats chat to get any
It
doubles.
would have been a freebie for anybody that came though.
It totally would have been a freebie. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. All right, and I'm sorry, Sarah, do you mind repeating that? Which was your second choice?
Sure, Blocks for 400.
Awesome. So this was the one that I kept with the timer. So if you wanted to do a timer for your questions, you could click this and it will be 1 minute if you want to give students a timer.
All right. So this one is, what's the difference between these two blocks? And then, so option A is block A plays a sound more times than block B. Block B, or option B, block A pauses the program, but block B does not. C, there is no difference. D, block B doesn't like tacos as much as block A.
All right, so I'm going to launch a poll. All right, A, B, C, or D?
What is the difference between these two blocks?
Ooh, this one's good. We're getting lots of different answers. Okay, I'm going to leave a few more seconds. Feel free to take a guess. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And, oops. Blocks for 400. See, this is why I took it out. In presentation mode, it plays the YouTube video. There we go. All right, so the answer is B. I'm going to share the results. So it was a tie between A and B. Emily, did you want to go over what the difference is and why?
Yeah. There was also a lot of controversy among the school success team about the wording of this question. So I will talk about that a little bit too. So these blocks are virtually the same. There's only a slight difference. So we are an event-based programming language, which means that anytime a splat is pressed or, well, specifically when a splat is pressed or released, it will interrupt whatever else is happening. So if you've got a sound playing in the background, but then you play a cat sound every time you stomp on a splat, it will stop whatever else is happening. So what's handy about that is that whenever you use option number A, when you play a sound until done, that full sound will complete until you can, like, before you can actually interrupt it. So we decided to use the language of pausing. It's not technically a pause, but it will complete that full sound. So instead of, say that splat 1 plays a splat sound and splat 2 has a meow, that splat sound or that meow will play all the way until they're done if one of the other ones is pressed. So you won't be like meow, it'll be meow.
And this is important, especially if anyone is interested in using splats for music or MIDI, which we'll get into later. So it's immediately, you can tell the difference between the two blocks. That's sort of how I learned too, because when you play it until done, it continues. But is that right, Emily? And then if you play it on the splat, then it just plays and then stops.
Yeah, we're going to talk so much more about it.
Okay.
And the other ones, but yeah.
All right.
These blocks are very similar. In most programs, you can just pick whichever one you grab first, to be honest. But
Cool.
there you go.
All right. So any more hands raised? Who wants to pick the next one? Namisha.
Find that bug for 400.
Mm.
Okay. Ooh, it's a good one.
So for this one, you need to move one splat to light splat number 3 blue. And you're gonna pick one of those letters to move.
All right, I'm gonna launch the poll.
And we're gonna give you a little extra time on this one because these ones take me a long time to process. So you're selecting which letter needs to be moved.
All right, the answers are starting to come in. Got some good guesses. Okay, give 10 more seconds. I love there's the most participation in this in this one, even though I think it's been the hardest one so far. Nice job, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll. And I'm gonna share the results first before we look at the answer. Okay. So some C's, some A's, and some B's. Let's see what it was.
C.
Nice job, C.
So for this one, we had a lot of fun making these questions, all the ones in the bugs category. You've identified the little bitty block that needs to be moved. So it's that little 3 block. So you're going to be taking that out of the repeat and snapping it up into the purple block. So if you selected A, block A doesn't technically need to be moved. So that's why that's not the correct answer. But you do need to move block C into block A.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about the difference, Emily, between the when program starts and the when splat 1 pressed? Because that I think is a little confusing.
Yeah, so in our app, and also pretty similar to other apps, whenever you have something inside when program starts, that's something that's going to happen immediately when you press that run button. So whenever, if we were to be doing this program specifically, when we press run, the splat would automatically light up splat 1 with the color blue. We want it to light up splat 3. So whenever we would press run, we'd know that there's already a bug going on. And then for the when splat 1 pressed, if we had splats connected or the splats that are just directly on the coding screen, if you've seen our app before, you can actually stomp on the splat on the screen itself. And for that one, you're not going to say 1, which is what that's going to be doing. So it'll be say 1 multiple times. It'll say 1, 1, 1. But that's not going to happen until you press on splat 1. So that's the main difference. Another really popular bug spot.
So are the splats themselves, do they have these numbers on them? Are they already numbered or do you assign them?
Very good question. They are anonymous. So they have their own Bluetooth ID number and they connect in the order that they're connected. So like if you turned on 6 splats at a time, the first one that you would choose to connect would be splat number 1. And then second would be 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can figure out which one is which by pressing the ID button that's in the app. So it'll light up, it'll tell you which one is which.
Okay.
Good question. And that's important, especially when there's a lot of relay race games or any games that have interdependencies between the 2 splats. So if maybe you have to press splat 2 before you press splat 1 before you get a point. So it is important to know which splats are which for some games. Yeah, really good question. All right, I'm trying to I have to keep track of which ones we've done. So we've done blocks, 200 and 400.
We also have a tracker that you can download as well that helps you do this.
Nice.
But if you're lucky enough to be doing this on a whiteboard, I just put big X's on it. But.
All right, Des raised his hand.
Sure, let's do some bug hunting. Let's go for find that bug for 800.
I love it. Nice, straight to 800. All right, kind of a similar one.
So for this one, you need to pick A, B, C, or D for move one block to set all splats random color.
Okay, and I'm going to relaunch the poll.
So you are picking which one needs to move. This one's a hard one.
It is a hard one. I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure.
We've done different bug things in the past where it's really just identifying where the mistake is. This one is hard, I think, because you have to choose which one moves.
Given a little hint. Okay. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Got a couple different answers, and I'm going to share the results. So we've got A and D, a tie, and then 1C. So let's see what the answer is and why.
All
All
right.
right. So D, the all little block here is going to be going zoop all the way up to light splat. And instead of one, it's going to be all with color random.
Similar explanation to last time. So again, really makes sense that A was another popular choice. But again, because the prompt is you're selecting which block is moving, you are going to be moving D into block A. So block A isn't going to be changing at all.
Question, Emily. So if we're moving block D up here to light splat all with color random, will this be replaced with anything, or will this just stay the same? The play note 60 on splat.
Oh, great question. So we would need to, I think the default on the music note blocks is 1. So it would play on default, I think, on splat 1. So if you wanted it to still play on all of the splats, you would need to drag out another all block or duplicate that block.
Awesome.
Good question.
Any other questions about this bug finder? Awesome. All right, so we've got time for, let's say, 2 more. I'll take the first hand raiser. Wasn't sure if Laura, you were stretching or raising your hand in real life.
I was turning on my light because when I sit at my desk, the auto sensor thinks I'm not here, so it shuts off the lights in my office. So I put my light on my desk so you can actually see me. But
Does the same thing at our office too. You'll see us like going like
Yep.
this.
I have to actually get up and walk around the corner in my office, so I'm not getting up.
Nice. All right, don't be shy, everybody, and feel free if you've already picked one, you can pick another one too.
I could just go again since I'm already unmuted if you want.
Sure.
But I don't.
Oh, I need to put it back onto the thing.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Let's do order up. What ones in there haven't we done yet?
We've done no order ups yet.
So
Yeah.
let's start with 200.
All right.
All right. So for this one, everything in this category, you need to choose the correct order. So you need to write the letters in order from top down. There's only 2 for this one. So what you're ordering the blocks to do is to make one splat turn green and then make a barking sound. So Lauren's going to have a poll that's going to have different options of orders, maybe.
I did do this one. Yeah, so you got a 50-50 shot. Couple more seconds to get your answers in. All right, you guys are pros. All right, I'm gonna end the poll and share the results. Nice job, everyone. So BA.
Yep.
You got it.
So, yep. For this one, the reason why we included this whole category is this is a really big thing, especially for young coders, whenever you're doing different activities with algorithms, to think about individual order and individual instructions. So if you, a lot of times something that I like to do is come up with different instructions just written down on paper of what you want something to do, and then pick the blocks and then pick the order of how we want to do it. So for this one, we're making splat 1 turn green, and then we're making a barking sound.
So I have a question talking about the until done again. So in this code, splat 1 would light up with color green, and then splat 1 would also make a dog sound. And would that dog sound be repeating or stopping after?
It'll just happen one time. So for all of our sounds, say you put this in a repeat block or in a while loop, you could do either of those options to make it continually bark. It wouldn't necessarily, the only reason why it would matter about that until done is if you have something else happening whenever you're stomping on a splat. So you could choose either one to go in your loop, but for, again, picking your block, if you want to make sure that bark finishes, if it's interrupted, choose the until done.
Awesome. All right. Let's do one more. Last pick. And there's a ton of questions on here. We're not going to go through them all. And like we said, it doesn't have to be a full class thing. You can do a couple questions here and there just to sort of break things up if you feel the energy dying down. It's a super interactive way to get kids excited. All right, Hannah raised her hand.
Let's do order up for 1,000.
Nice, I like it. Ambitious. Woohoo.
Okay, so for this one, you need to order A, B, C, and D to make a win sound.
Okay, so I'm going to launch a poll.
And one other note on this one, we showed you the functions that are on the right-hand side. Those are just so that you know what's inside of them. They're not actually a part of it. So you'll see that score points is in B, win sounds is in D. We're just showing you what those functions actually are.
This is a tough one. I'll give you guys some extra time to figure it out too. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in 3 seconds. I'm going to show the results. Okay. CABD is the correct answer. Nice job, those of you who picked it. All right, let's walk through this one, Emily. This one's a tough one.
Yeah. So we chose to include this one as the top one for order up because setting win conditions is something that a lot of times it's one of the first things that students want to do whenever they're playing a game of splats or building their own game of splats. So we basically just deconstructed one of the most popular way to do this. So whenever you put all the code together, if you're wanting to play win sounds, you need to do a couple of things first. So first of all, oftentimes there'll be a win sound associated with a color. So you've got to make sure that the splat is lighting up that color. So that's why lighting splat up red is coming up first. We also have, like I mentioned before, the main things in our sensing blocks is checking for score or checking for color. So for this one, if our splat color is red, you're then going to light up the splat green. So we might have something else going on in the game where you press on a splat and maybe it turns red, and maybe there's some other things going on in the background. But that's a really popular thing happens in splat games. But once we've got our splat as green, we're going to be doing, we put it in a function. So we're scoring points. So we're going to be changing our score by 2. And then what is going to be happening at the very, very end is we're actually going to be checking to see what our score is. So that's why D has to come last, is because you had no way of actually changing your score until you made sure that your score points function was getting recalled earlier. So that's that's the main gist, is that you had to change your points before you could have your win sounds, and you had to set your splat colors before you could score your points.
All right, and don't worry if you're not super familiar with functions yet. We will probably do another webinar on it. Des, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just quick question. So, like variables that are defined, like score and things like that, are they defined as 0 or just undefined? So I guess when setting this up, do you have to set the score as 0 first before you start adding to it, or is that just understood?
Oh, good question. So ours are default as 0. So you don't need to set them automatically. We actually have score. Our scoring works a little bit, it's easier, honestly. So it works a little bit different, but it defaults at 0. You can also set your score. So say that you didn't want it to be starting off at 0, you would need to set it first just to make sure that it wasn't at 0.
Awesome, good question. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions? Before we move on.
Oh, is Lauren frozen?
All right. So we're gonna. Guys hear me?
Now I can.
Okay.
Back.
My internet's been a little wonky today. I probably made a very derpy face while I was frozen. It's always the way. Okay. So, oops. Bear with me. I'm going to share my screen again. And Emily's going to talk a little bit about Stomp Madness.
Yeah. So Stomp Madness is coming up in March. And Stomp Madness is basically a challenge that we're running across all of March for all of our member schools. And every penny is a stomp, and that penny is donated to charity. So we're donating basically for every stomp that happens across all of our schools for all of March, 1 penny to a charity called Kaboom, which builds playgrounds for kids that need them. So that's what we're going to be doing over March, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah.
We're going to be releasing different activities that are very stomp heavy to try to get that number up, and all sorts of other fun challenges. So that's Stomp Madness.
What about schools that are virtual, Emily?
Good question. So we're going to be tracking blocks and stomps for all schools. So whichever is higher. So say that you're building some crazy programs, but you're not able to actually physically stomp on your spots, that's okay. So we'll give you a penny for every block. Oftentimes they're kind of similar, to be honest. So we're going to be checking that one. And the other thing is that you don't have to register. So we're just going to be tracking it for all of our schools. So if you've got splats, make sure to be stomping them for all March.
Awesome. Okay, so now it's Q&A / Swedish fish time. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or write us in the chats. This is super fun. The way I'm gonna pick a winner for tonight is I'm gonna get a number randomizer from Google. Let's see how many of us are in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 of us. Okay. And I'm going to pick a random number and then pick whichever number is on my screen. So 4. So 1, 2, 3. So Violet, you win a 5-pound bag of Swedish fish or a candy of your choice.
You're getting Swedish fish.
Yes.
You didn't ask for them, but they're coming to you.
Yes. Awesome. Yay. All right. Does anybody have any questions about Splats or Stomp Madness or Jeopardy? I'm going to email out probably tomorrow morning this deck. It's not going to be this copy of the deck. It'll be the original copy of the deck. And then you'll just follow the instructions to make a copy for yourself. And then you can make it your own. Awesome. I hope this was helpful. This is actually, I think, the second slide deck that we've done. We did one for Hour of Code in the past. Most of our activities have been PDFs, but we got some feedback from our educators, our teachers, that they like slide decks. So this was a lot of fun for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to stop recording.